Welcome. This week's Parsha is Parshas Vayera. It should be Lilu Nishmas, my great-grandmother, Dina Bas Yisrael Chaim, Alav Shalom, and it should be for Shlema Mordechai Eitan ben Sarah. So in this week's Parsha, we start off with the first pasuk, Vayare Elav Hashem Balonei Mamrei. So I got a new sefer from Rabbi Shaf, Shlita, who's in Los Angeles, who brings down from the Oav Yisrael, Rabbi Avraham Yeshua Hershel of Apta, the Apta Rav. So he shares in the name, the Apta Rav shares the name of Rav Moshe Prashavorsk, that Avraham Avinu was so humble that he believed the only reason the Shekhinah, Hashem's presence, came to visit was because he was in the territory of his friend Mamrei, the plains of Mamrei. So with this perspective, we have a new reading of the first pasuk. Vayare Lov Hashem, and Hashem came to Avraham, Belonei Mamrei, only because he was in the plains of Mamrei. So this humility is the hallmark of tzaddikim, the truly righteous. Even though they serve Hashem, their whole lives, and are worthy of his presence, they still see themselves as standing just at the entrance to holiness, but not yet there, but not fully there. It's a powerful lesson in humility, always striving, always feeling there's room to come closer, even when you're already so close, but there's still room to grow and to get closer. We have another insight. As we know, this week's Parsha recounts how Hashem visits Avraham Avinu after his bris milah, and it teaches the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. So Minchas discusses in a sefer, can one call on the telephone and fulfill the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim? So he starts with the Igros Moshe, who explains that there are three areas for the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim that we fulfill. So one part of Bikur Cholim is davening for the sick. One part is providing for the needs of the sick while you're there. And the third is strengthening them, being mechazik them with your words, with encouragement that they should get better and that they should be able to get better. So some of these components, davening, being mechazik them, that they can get through this, offering words of encouragement, this can all be done over the phone. However, physically meeting the person to assist with their needs, you typically can't do that unless you're in person. It's much harder to be done long distance. The Minchas, although the Igros Moshe comes out that you can at least fulfill part of Bikur Cholim over the phone, the Minchas argues that you can't fulfill the mitzvah over the phone. Why? He explains that Bikur Cholim, that mitzvahs in general, there has a tzuras ha-mitzvah, which is the action that the mitzvah is fulfilled. So, for example, by taking the dalaminim, you take an esrog and a lulav and you shake it, and you can't really change the nature of that mitzvah, that action. And then there's an inner essence, there's an inyan hapanimi, there's an inner purpose for that mitzvah. So by Bikur Cholim, although we might be able to achieve over the phone the reasoning for the mitzvah, such as davening for the sick or giving words of encouragement, being chazik them, but it doesn't have the tzuras ha-mitzvah. It doesn't have the way that the mitzvah was the way that the physical act of the mitzvah is being Bikur Cholim, levakar as a chola, to actually visit the sick physically, and you can't replace that with a phone call. And so while a phone call may not count as Bikur Cholim, it does count as Gemilas Chasadim, just a small caveat. So that's the Minchas. Moving on to the next pasuk Beis, where it talks about V'yisayina Vayar v'nei shlosha anashim nitzavim alav Vayar v'yaretz likrasam mipesach ha'ol v'yishtachu arza. So Avraham Avinu gets 3 guests, and he quickly runs to prepare food for them. So there's a story told about the 2 holy brothers, Rabbi Elimelech of Lazinsk and Rabbi Zusha of Anipoli. And when we can see the following, that the 2 brothers were traveling, and they came to a town where a very learned and generous Jew took them in as guests. And the host prepared a lavish meal full with various delicacies, but the brothers, being very pious, living a modest life, only ate a tiny amount. They barely touched any of the food. Sometime later, Rabbi Elimelech and Rabbi Zusha happened to pass through the same town again. So they went back to the same host, expecting to be welcomed with open arms. But this time, the host surprised them. He refused to host them. So the brothers were astonished and asked, what changed his mind? Why wouldn't they have him this time? So the host explained, you see, the Torah gives us two examples of hospitality, one by Avraham and one by Lot. When the angels came to Avraham, they appeared as ordinary men, and Avraham was thrilled to serve them. He prepared a full meal, a feast, and they ate. But when the angels visited Lot, they appeared as angels, and Lot was relieved. That they were angels. I don't have to prepare a meal. He was relieved that he didn't have to prepare any food for them. So the host turned to the brothers and said, since you acted like angels last time you were here, you would be perfect guests for Lot, but not for me. And indicating that, you should be guests of Avraham, and he wanted guests that would be like Avraham, that would join in the meal. So the next time you're a guest at someone's home for Shabbos or lunch, remember to eat and enjoy the meal so that you'll be a guest of Avraham and not of Lot. Moving on to the next idea, we move to Pasuk Zayin in Perek Yud Ches in the first Aliyah still. V'labakar ratz Avraham ve'yikach ben bakar rach v'tov yitin el nahar v'yimaher lasos oso. So after the three guests came to visit Avraham, he wasted no time. He started preparing a meal. So it says Avraham ran to the herd, as we just read, took a calf and gave it to the lad. What does it mean, vayitin elanar, and he gave it to the lad? So Rashi, quoting a Medrash, tells us that Avraham's son Yishmael was the lad that was helping Avraham, that he gave it to. And why would Avraham involve Yishmael in this preparation? So Rashi explains that Avraham wanted to teach Yishmael to be mechanechim in mitzvahs. So Shimon Schwab adds on to this. Rashi gives a little extra insight, and he explains that Yishmael, like Avraham, was on his third day of recovery from bris milah. He was also recovering. As we saw in last week's parsha, both Avraham and Yishmael had their bris on the same day. So Yishmael too was recovering, and it was an especially hot day. It was hot that day. Yet Avraham still asked Yishmael to prepare 3 animals to make a specific delicacy, 3 tongues with mustard, as Mitzvah mentions. And this shows us something remarkable about Avraham's chinuch, his way of teaching. He was showing Yishmael that to do a mitzvah, you need Mesirat Nefesh sometimes. You push yourself, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you're not feeling well. That's what Avraham was teaching by example, not only himself running out, getting everything ready for the seuda, for the meal, to fulfill the mitzvah of Chnasos Orchim, but also involving his son, who also was in the same predicament as him, not being, we're still recovering from bris milah, to also go out of his way to prepare. And so this is the powerful lesson of Avraham that he was trying to pass on to Yishmael, that true china, then, being able to guide not only through example, but also allowing your son to be involved in that example as well, and even through challenges, to continue to fulfill mitzvahs. Moving on to the next, the last idea that we have for this week's parsha, Perek Yud Ches Pasuk Ches. So in Parshas Vayera, we see Avraham serving his guests a meal with both dairy, right, whether it be cream or cottage cheese, and meat, specifically tongue. So now this raises 2 questions. First, we know the halacha in Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to place meat and milk, dairy and milk, on the same table, as there's a concern that someone might come to eat them together. So how could Avraham, which tradition teaches us that he kept the Torah even before it was given, serve both milk and meat together at the same meal? And furthermore, why does the pasuk emphasize v'hu omeid aleihem, and he, Avraham, stood over them, the malachim? So Lev Aryeh and Cholim, brought in the Shal Rav on this week's parsha, explains with an interesting halacha. On Shabbos, we're generally not allowed to read by candlelight, because there's a worry that someone might tilt the candle to make the light brighter, which one would violate the malacha of Mamrei, of lighting a fire. But this rule changes if someone else is around. If there's another person there, they can act as a reminder, making it okay to read by candlelight, since they'll help us avoid making that mistake. So now we can understand the pasuk about Avraham. Why was he standing over them? He was there to serve as a reminder, like the person by the candle on Shabbos, ensuring that his guests wouldn't accidentally mix the milk and the meat. So in this way, Avraham upheld the separation, teaching us a powerful lesson about teaching us this interesting halacha in this pasuk, alluded to in this pasuk, that having meat and milk on the same table can be done if you have almost like a shomer there to prevent the mixing and meat, and a reminder to the guests not to mix it. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Hope you enjoyed. Until next week.